All right, and today we have with us Max Roland Davidson. He is yet another non-directed kidney donor like myself, who's going to share with us today his story of donating a kidney just a few months ago. So Max, of course, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
Yeah, always happy to chat about this stuff and yeah, talk about my experience a little bit. Thanks for having me.
Really good to hear it. So just starting off the easy and obvious question, how long ago did you hear about donation first? And can you talk about how you eventually came to think of yourself as a potential kidney donor too?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it was something which I don't think I could ever think of maybe the first time I ever learned about non-directed donation. But I think one of my sharpest memories of it is reading an article on Vox by Dylan Matthews about kidney donation and about his personal experience donating a kidney. It always really struck me that it's didn't seem like that hard of a thing to do. It seemed like you could really transform someone's life. And what he really focused on, which felt really impactful for me, was that living on dialysis is just such a bad way to live life. It's painful, it's hard, you can't do the things you love to do, and you can be really fine without a kidney. So that always really struck me is the relative lack of cost for someone donating a kidney, and then the recipient's really transformative for their life. So that always really stuck with me, and kind of stayed in the back of my mind. And then I was pretty consistently a blood donor, and I volunteer a lot in the community. And then I started to reflect on it a little bit more. And then in late 2020, I decided I want to move forward with it. And then I, kind of set the process in motion, and then lined up some time off from work. And about a year later, December 2021, I became a donor.
Wow, that's awesome. So that was just what, 4.5 months ago then, since you've donated. That's really cool. So can you think of any other decision, like big decisions you made in your life that you had to use a similar process that another potential donor could like think through? What's your advice on how to make big decisions like this, I guess?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I think the most obvious thing that kind of comes to mind is, a lot of career changes. I think it's kind of like a similar process in the sense that, like, you really want to kind of weigh out what your current situation and then the possible change to that situation and what the pros and cons would be.
Hmm.
I also think that human beings, we have a tendency towards inertia. Uh, so if you're in a job for a really long time, you hear about people staying in jobs they don't like all the time for years and years and years. You hear about that with relationships. People are
Hmm.
dating the same person for 10, 15 years without actually liking them that, maybe not that quite that
Yeah.
years without liking someone that much. And, I think that's something to kind of keep in mind is like, what is really stopping you from making this change? And that's something which I try and reflect upon both, when I was doing kidney donation, but also just, every day in my life. I got a new job just about a year ago, and that was kind of something which I reflected a lot on as I was making that change. So I think something that's helpful when you're trying to make a big decision like this is, really weighing the pros and cons, but also thinking about maybe your tendency towards inertia
Hmm.
is something that kind of help me make a decision.
Yeah, that's super relatable. I know I try to tell myself like every year you stay in a job needs to feel like a decision in and of itself. It's just as much a decision to leave it as it is to stay. So I'm like super on board with that one. You talked a bit about kind of comparing risk and benefits, not only for
Mhm.
yourself, but also other people. And especially in a non-directed donor situation, it's essentially an empty canvas of who this person would be that you're, caring for. So if you're familiar with effective altruism, did that kind of weigh in? And, I know it's a really diverse community and I'm not, inherently endorsing it, but I really like a lot of the thought processes that that community does use. So does that kind of ring a bell or relate, do you relate in any way?
Yeah, so I'm personally a strong proponent of effective altruism. I donate a certain portion of my income every year to GiveWell, which is a organization that basically gives money directly to high impact charities in the developing world. Um, so I would say there's certainly some similarities in the sense that, like, you're really thinking about risk, reward, benefit, and impact in a really quantifiable way,
Hmm.
I think is definitely a similarity. Um, Obviously there are some differences in terms of like, how you quantify impact and those sort of thought processes, but I think the core way of evaluating a decision
Yeah.
is similar, is you really want to look at what the actual costs and benefits are, and to the extent possible, I think this is something that people who are really into effective altruism advocate for, is trying to get rid of a certain amount of like sentimental component.
Hmm.
Some people, I don't necessarily agree with this 100%, but some people who are really into effective altruism, they say you should only give money to you know buying malaria nets in the third world, and you should never buy Girl Scout cookies to support a local Girl Scout
Right.
troop. And you should totally remove any sort of sentimental decision. Obviously, you can't. I don't support doing that per se, but I do think there is a certain amount of where you can apply that thought process that
Sure.
was helpful for me to make this decision.
That's awesome. And since you're familiar and I can dig a little bit more, I know I read a lot of effective altruist kind of critiques
Yep.
on organ donation,
Yep.
with the kind of presumption that the time that you take off of work and the amount of
Yep.
money that you could have donated with that added like hours put into your job, instead of donating a single organ to a person to improve their quality of life for X year, what, seven
Yep.
to 20 years or so, whatever a living organ lives, it's better off, like, again, you save more quality of life if you stay in your
Yep.
job. However, at least for myself, and I'm curious for yourself too, that time off for me was paid regardless. And not only that, but I think it brought home to my close network a really kind of clear example of like actually you can make out of the like off not off the cuff, but out of the kind of traditional path. Oh, you can make decisions off the outside the traditional path that work out just fine and are actually really interesting and helpful. So
Yeah.
can you talk about taking time off work? What did your workplace think? How did you tell them, or did you tell them much at all?
No, I mean, I didn't tell them much at all, actually. I just kind of told them I need to get some surgery.
Yeah.
So I don't. It's actually kind of funny. I didn't really tell a lot of my friends that I was doing this until like a week beforehand, and I was like, just so you know, this is happening.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, I was pretty private about this,
That's
actually.
cool. Yeah.
But I mean, I think with respect to also the effective altruism critique, like you said, like I think it also at some level with that sort of critique it becomes a sort of math problem. You start to get into the particulars of compensation. So I don't find that critique to be especially
Okay.
compelling. Um, and I think also, which I think you're kind of touching on with your point about, encouraging people to make moral decisions that are a little off the beaten path. I really kind of wrestled this for a while. As I didn't really post anything on social media about giving a kidney away.
Yeah.
Eventually, I decided I wanted to, make a small post about it. And the reason I did that is I think a lot of moral behavior is like socializable.
Yeah.
And if you see people, giving a kidney, you see people, and it's even as simple as like, giving $1 to a homeless person on the street. I see that happen in the subway sometimes. Is like
Yeah.
there's a homeless guy asking for money on the subway. One person gives $1. Everyone, two or three people give him $1. No one gives him $1. No other person's going to do it.
Yeah.
So I think, in a similar way, if you do things that are, have a positive moral effect, I think you can really, and you're public about it, I think there are a lot of, knockoff and spillover benefits to your surrounding community.
Yeah. That's a big driver behind, I think, the YouTube channel that we're making together right now.
Yeah.
So along those same lines, can you talk about exactly how long from when you first reached out to the transplant center to when you donated, about how long that process was? Were you like really proactive, or did you kind of take some time?
Yeah, great question. So the process for me, I reached out and started gathering like information, spoke to a number of non-direct donors in December of 2020.
Okay.
And then in, I believe, February of 2021, I began the process in earnest. And then by, I think, mid-March, I'd completed the initial testing and I was kind of in standby at that point. I'm fortunate in that I live in New York City. My family lives in New York City. So I'm fortunate that I was able to stay with my mom and dad while while I was recovering from the surgery, but they kind of had some personal scheduling. They also changed jobs that summer, so I ended up pushing off the kidney donation until December 2021.
Got it.
So I was kind of on standby for about, I guess that's 8 months while I was waiting for, be able to line kind of up stuff with my new job as well as my parents' schedule.
Okay.
But you can basically get you can donate the kidneys within a year of completing the initial testing. So I had until March of 2022 to
Ah,
complete
okay.
the.
I hadn't heard that. That's a good tidbit.
Yep.
And did you go through the NKR, the National Kidney Registry, or just through the transplant center in their network?
Yeah, I went through the National Kidney Registry.
Got it. Okay. So did you kick off a kidney chain, or are you not aware yet?
To my knowledge, I did not. I donated during the Omicron surge in the United States.
Yeah.
So I think there were just some challenge. My impression, I don't have any sort of backing for this, but my impression is I think that made some of the chain and some just like donations in general a little more challenging.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Uh,
It just
so I don't think I caused a chain, but I can double check. I've actually been meaning to reach back out about that, but I don't believe I
sure.
did.
Okay. And you're still just a few months off surgery too, so I
Yeah.
wonder if you'll get more info later. Did they tell you anything about your donor, your recipient, as you were going
Yeah,
through or towards the end?
yeah. So they tell you what? They tell you the person's gender, their age. I think they give you like a range,
Oh,
and they tell you. I think they're legally mandated to tell you the transplant center where they're getting where they're receiving the kidney.
oh, okay.
Experience. It's kind of interesting conversation. So I know it's like a man in Michigan who's like in his 40s. That's literally all the information I have about the recipient.
Oh, okay. So did you decide to stay anonymous or were you open to contact later on?
I'd say I was open to contact,
Mhm.
but I feel as though I would feel kind of weird reaching out to this guy
Okay.
and just saying like, "Hi, who are you?" I feel as though if you receive a kidney, you might feel weird about being reached out to from the donor. You might feel this weird debt of gratitude. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I kind of told myself that if he wanted to reach out to me, I'd always be happy to talk, but I was not going to make the initial contact.
Got it. Okay. So talking about the process, what was there anything that surprised you that you think a potential donor should know? Anything that you felt the staff could have prepared you for better or were very dissuasive? And specifically this psych exam that everyone asks about.
Yeah. I would say just with respect to the staff, I mean, I got my surgery done at New York Presbyterian. I can say the staff was, excellent. Every single nurse, surgeon, anesthesiologist were consummate professionals. And I feel incredibly lucky to have had my surgery there. The psych test for me, it was a pretty simple, talk about why you're doing this, make sure that you're of at least relatively sound mind insofar as donating to a stranger is. Some basic. I think they gave me like kind of a cognitive test where gave me some statements and I had to repeat them back like 2 or 3 minutes later.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I mean, I would say the only thing is, I'd never gotten major surgery before.
Okay.
Um, so I would say, the pain I was, you're getting major surgery. It hurts. And you're giving painkillers. But during and it's manageable. And during right after the surgery, they gave me a nerve blocker, which is, an incredibly strong painkiller. And that lasted for 24, 30 hours. And then that was wearing off I remember actually my parents were visiting me in the hospital the next day and it was wearing off. And that was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. And they gave me a pretty strong painkiller. I
Okay.
think it's called Dilaudid
Yeah.
after that. But that was the only thing I didn't feel prepared for. The other stuff, it was like, I've hurt myself playing sports before and,
Okay.
I've hurt myself pretty badly doing that sort of stuff. But, after that kind of initial shock of pain, it was pretty manageable.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, I know I always thought during the process, like I had no idea how much blood and urine they would need from me.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
like, so someone who's really needle averse, that's something to, that it may be a big hindrance to donating. I counted like 73 vials of blood in total that they took throughout the whole process.
In my
Yeah.
when they sent me some vials of they sent me some vials to go and get like a home blood test
Yeah.
taken, and they accidentally sent me 300 vials instead of like 10. So in my part one day, and there was like a box, and it was like literally 300 vials, and I was like, I don't think you guys can take this much blood. I'm not sure if I have this much blood in my
Like
body.
you'll have to wait over some months. I will say going to like the local like FedEx to ship it and like showing up with vials of blood and the the poor attendant is like, all right, you pack those over there. Um, yeah, there were some goofy times. Um,
Yeah,
so that does go back. So if your parents were the ones who had to kind of sign up for babysitting you afterwards,
yeah.
then you had to have kind of get a little bit of their blessing in a way earlier. I know it sounds like you told your employer and friends like really pretty late, but overall, can you talk through um, what it was like telling both your family, friends, and then I guess your, any coworkers, kind of more distant acquaintances or people you've met even since donating, um, and why you kind of decided to go at the pace you did, and what some of their responses were. Like, was it easy or kind of difficult?
Yeah, I don't know. I think with my parents, I kind of told them it was something I was thinking about, and one of my mom's best friends is a kidney donor.
Oh,
So she was kind of familiar with the process. So, you know, I wouldn't say they were happy, but, they weren't like freaking out about it.
okay.
And I would say kind of with my friends, like, you know, they kind of accepted it was just like a thing I was doing. And now, with people who I've met later after the surgery's been done, like, comes up in conversation. I don't really know what to talk about. I've done honestly more interesting things than donate a kidney before.
Sure.
Um, I prefer to talk about that stuff, which I think is way cooler than the kidney donation, but it happens. I don't know. So at this point, just kind of like another thing that I did.
Okay. So you're a really cool guy. Got it. Okay. Noted.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that like things happen to me, and then I just feel like I'm a magnet for trouble.
Oh gosh. Okay. Um, but it sounds like at least so far, 4 months out, it has gone well, at least the kidney
Yeah,
donation. And um, how do you feel like, I guess, especially because you're fresh off
yeah,
the operating table, can a lot of potential donors are very concerned about how much time they need to take off of work. And so I would ask, just from your experience, especially because your memory is so recent,
yeah,
three scenarios in which you have a desk, you work from home and
mhm,
have essentially a desk job at home.
yeah,
Uh, Whether you have a desk job, but you have to commute to the office and bring like your computer in and that kind of thing. And then also something that's like a little bit higher energy, like maybe an active like technician or testing or nursing, like something like that where you're on your feet most of the day. Like, could you give ballparks of when, at least in your experience, someone could go back to work?
yeah. So I mean, I work remotely, and I work, desk job remotely. So I mean, I was back to doing work at like, you know, 60% or so after about like a week and a half, I think.
Okay.
Honestly, I just got really bored of sitting at home and watching Netflix. So, I would say that was pretty quick. I think in terms of commuting, I think the commute depends on how long the commute is, obviously, but I think that could be a little bit more of a struggle. That could be like maybe 2 to 3 weeks. And then if you're really up on your feet, you can't really lift anything more than 15 to 20 pounds. And like they tell you that, and like I'm very athletic. I work out very regularly. And when they told me that, I was thinking like, oh, like that's like 15 to 20 pounds for someone who's not in very good, who's in pretty average physical
Yeah.
condition. And I would say I'm like, substantially above that. And like I was carrying like a bag of laundry down the block, and I was in like
Oh
agonizing pain at the end of it.
God.
Um, so really, really serious about the 15 to 20
Yeah.
pound rule. Um, so I mean, if you're doing like an active job, like I think you need probably longer than the 2 to 3 weeks, like maybe like 5 to
Okay.
6.
And I think that lines
Yeah.
up with the recommendation for
Yeah.
when you're supposed to start lifting. So I've skipped some of the basics then. Your surgery was laparoscopic and on your
Yep.
left side. Can you talk about who and how that was decided upon, which side and what kind of surgery?
Um, I went to the fine folks at New York Presbyterian, and Dr. Sam Sultan said, "We're going to do a laparoscopic surgery, and we're going to take your left kidney." And I said, "Okay,
All
doctor."
right, well,
This was decided, and I did not question his judgment.
okay,
So I apologize. I can't give you a better answer than that.
sure.
It's my understanding that I can't speak to the surgery type, but it's my understanding they take the left kidney because the vessels are slightly longer, so it's easier for the recipient surgeon to attach it to them. It's my understanding, but I don't know about the decision for the type of surgery.
Okay, got it. Yep. Yeah, and just yeah, for the audience, I think it's well over 90% of the kidneys taken are left kidneys. Um, Here's a bit of a, you know, oddball question. Can you think of the best and the worst moments? I think you probably already named the worst, but throughout the whole process, kind of like, were there any really like, you know what, this was awesome, this was worth it, and others, especially if you ever kind of had second thoughts or something like that?
Um, I can't really think of any best moments, not to sound negative, but like it was the type of thing where like I donated and then it was like a day or two later, I was like, okay, this was the right choice. And I kind of just felt like it was. So I can't really think of any sort of like moment of deep personal satisfaction that I felt. I just kind of feel like it was the right choice and it kind of came to me.
Okay.
I will say that so I'm Jewish and I had the chaplaincy service at New York Presbyterian, and I had a rabbi come visit me after my surgery, and I think I was just really overtired and kind of on like loopy, and I kind of lost my temper with him a
Oh
little
no.
bit. Um, I was like, I don't know why I did this. This was really stupid. I'm in a lot of pain, and I don't feel good about this.
Oh no.
And then, like 24 hours later, I felt like really fulfilled. I felt like I did the right thing, but I definitely got angry at a representative of God, which was maybe a mistake.
It's like it sounds like the dilaudid brought you back around to there's
Yeah, exactly.
that's horrible to say. Um, anyway. Okay, that's certainly very interesting. And then I guess maybe that ties into, and again, you're just a few months out, but looking back on it, like how do you think of the kidney donation? Like how significant is it in your whole life story, and like how fondly do you think of it, or what else could it compare to, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm proud that I did it. I think it was a good thing. Is it, but there are other things that I feel more proud of that I've done. I launched like a mentorship program for high school girls to teach them about advocacy, and like at the end of the day, I feel more proud about having done that than donating a kidney.
Mhm.
So I mean, like it's a thing that I did, and I feel good that I did it. But there are things in my life that I felt like I feel better about, and I'm glad that I did it though. And I don't have any regrets, but it's not like a capstone achievement in my life.
Wow, yeah, that's super cool in my opinion. Um, that sounds a lot like Abigail Marsh, some of her research on kidney, specifically non-directed kidney donors. Have you read up on her research at all? Do you have any like kind of thoughts or opinions you'd like to share, or what felt kind of interesting?
Yeah. So some of her research is about she has this theory that you have some people who are sociopaths who lack empathy, and then you have some people who are like ultra empathetic or or the opposite of a sociopath, and she gives that example of kidney donors, which I think is interesting because I don't think I'm necessarily a very empathetic person. I worked in Brooklyn politics for a lot of time, so I feel like that's kind of like the other pole. That's the sociopathy in me. Um, No, but I think it's an interesting perspective. But at least my personal experience, like, I don't think I'm a particularly empathetic person. I could introduce you to a lot of people who don't think I'm a very empathetic person. I have all sorts of girlfriends I could call on here. But no, in all seriousness, like I think it's interesting, but I don't know how true it is that people who give kidneys are ultra empaths or anything.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my general thoughts about her work.
That's very interesting. I I think I had kind of a similar reaction. Like at first it almost plays off of again what I'm trying to at least challenge or dispel a little bit is that this is just the pinnacle of human self-sacrifice and bravery, and laying down one's own life for that of another. Because when you start looking at the statistics, that doesn't necessarily,
Yeah.
it clearly is not the case. These surgeries would not be performed if they were a major, you know, if there was a very lopsided risk benefit to them. And also, I thought a lot about some of the examples she used in her book, which was still, super informative and thought provoking. But something like running, at the drop of a hat into a burning building to save someone else, like that is a very different situation
Yeah.
than being able to sit back, make a calculated, decision, and then follow through with it if with every kind of resource there to kind of help you through also. I felt like that was very different.
Yeah.
Um, so I would argue too, I guess saying that you worked in politics, I would encourage you to think about how that's another way in which, I think of law as the similar thing where it's got this reputation that's like so consistently negative, but effective altruists know that the reason that those professions have earned a negative reputation is because they're so powerful and are instances where miscarriages of justice can echo throughout, decades. And so, working in law in Brooklyn, or, it, the car manufacturer you do today, I don't know, there's opportunity to be the person to make good decisions instead of bad ones in those. So anyway, but I'm momming at you. So, um,
No, I mean, I
so
understand. I think with opportunities for systems change that opportunities for systems change that can, really redound throughout a system. That's also another kind of critique of effective altruism, which is that, if you can change a system, that can really, instead of, these piecemeal approaches where you're solving these small problems, you can change a system to, solve a bigger problem. So anyhow,
yeah,
yeah,
totally.
it definitely resonates with me.
Okay. So on that, do you have just general advice for potential donors? And kind of, you've talked a lot about how you like to make decisions, and advice in that direction. And it's kind of too simple on the other hand to say you don't happen to regret it, therefore, like just like go forward. But do you have any specific advice for donors who are curious about donating or people who are curious about donating?
Because there's a couple things. Is one, I really do think like, everyone's going to have different questions. The reason we got connected is I did like an AMA on Reddit, and then you sent me a DM, and scrolling through that, like people have all sorts of like niche questions about like every single thing you could ever imagine, and I am so ill-equipped to answer any of those questions. So this is all to say, like, I really think if you're interested in like giving a kidney, really the best things you could do is like one, talk to someone directly who's been a donor, um, and you can reach out to the National Kidney Registry. They have opportunities to connect you with donors. Um, and also, like to the extent possible, like I believe they can also connect you with the doctor if you begin that process. And I think that's the other thing is really that was going to be your best bets are opportunities to get that direct information because, like you said, like these the public information available just is not that it's not that precise necessarily, and it doesn't necessarily cover every situation. So any opportunity you can get to really sit down with someone who is a doctor, who is a donor, take those opportunities. That's gonna be the best way to educate yourself.
Awesome. On the flip side, do you have any advice for recipients who are waiting for a kidney, thinking about how to ask loved ones to consider donating? What are your thoughts there?
Oh, I would not give advice to I don't give advice about things that I don't know about. So I am going to respectfully pass on that question. I apologize.
No, it's okay. No, that's I I can empathize with that for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think we've covered a whole lot today. If there's not anything else, I would ask if you've got any interesting work, it sounds like you're really involved in your community. If you have any work that you do or organizations you want to draw attention to, just you've got a platform, so
Yeah,
what rings a bell, I guess.
what rings a bell? I would just say maybe two things. Is one, like I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of GiveWell. I think they're doing really impactful work in the developing world to transform people's lives in a way that is very, very direct. And I think there are a few organizations that really match up with them in terms of impact, in terms of transparency, and in terms of just like a drive to continual improvement. So if you have some money to donate, I would really strongly recommend looking into them. But the other thing I would encourage is, if you're watching this video, something I do believe is that everyone has the capacity to make an impact in their community in their own way. And yeah, I would recommend finding how you drive that impact. The way that I've done that is I don't even consider the kidney donation to be that much part of it. I tutor high schoolers. I volunteer at this church down the block from me with their food pantry. And I would encourage anyone watching this video to reflect on ways that you can impact your community, because I think that really does get us a lot further as a society if every single person can give an hour of their time once a month. And I think everyone does have the capacity to do that if you want to. So that's the closing words I leave you with is, the reason I donated a kidney was kind of part of a broader commitment to humanity and society. And, maybe this isn't for you, but find something that is for you in a way that you can support those who are less fortunate than you. So that would be kind of my 2 cents.
Wow, that was at least 4 cents. That's phenomenal. So, all right. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much, Matt. It's so good to get to meet you, and just I'm looking forward to all the work that you get to do in the future. And yeah, just thank you very, very much for your time.
of course. Well, thank you so much for having me.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Take care.
Bye.